Page Lamadal now. You're eating with a guy on a table. You are reclining with him at a meal. You kneel in front of Lugan al Shulchan. You put upon the table a bottle of wine. Lagin al dalpaki, and you put a bottle of wine on the sideboard. On the serving table, right? You left the guy there. And you left. Mashal al Shulchan, also that which is on the table is forbidden, because we assume that the guy used it, right? And when he used it, he poured it, and that's like libating. Mashal dulpike, whatever's on the sideboard is mutter, is permitted. Ve'im, however, im amar lo, you said to him, said, go and mix and drink whatever you want. Af mashal dulpike also, and even that which is on the sideboard is also, okay? Because we assume he went into the sideboard. Kavios psuchos asuros. Sealed barrels, open barrels are potter, but are also, open barrels are forbidden, but sumos, sealed barrels, that takes longer to be forbidden. Kadeshi patach v'yigov v'tigov. It's only if you had enough time to open the sealed barrels and close them and seal them again, because otherwise you can obviously tell if they were opened or not. Okay? Having boin lemema, they want to say masha ala shulchan, which is on the table also is forbidden. B'tok pishiyadayim, only within hand reach. We actually had a similar sugi on Daf Lamed Aleph where I changed the girsa, but this sugi over here is what made me very happy when I saw it today, because in fact if you learn it like the Rashba, which is brought down by the Ridbaz, so it's identical. The changes here are identical to the ones I made back there. So okay. So I'm boy man, I wanted to say Masha Al Shulchan Aser B'tok pishiyadayim. It's got it. Since we're talking about the guy, that what you said, if the guy, we're afraid, if you leave the room even momentarily, the guy is going to take anything within easy reach and libate it, or just pour it, so that includes that which is on the table, but also within arm's reach. That's beyond the table and within arm's reach. Mashallah dulpike, what's on the sideboard, on the other hand, mutter is permitted, chutz pishiyadayim, also, only if it's outside of arm's reach, right? Now, this is, I'm sorry, Marshal Duplicate, yeah, I want to change here something, actually, I didn't notice it. Marshal Duplicate, I want to say is Osir. Marshal Duplicate says you're mutter, but I want to change it to Osir. Okay? What? It says mutter, but I want to change it. Mashal duplicate, you have you're on the word.
You're reading from the Mishnah.
You're reading from the Mishnah. 2 lines down below that. And I want to say Mashal duplicate also. That which says the end of the Mishnah, if it's on the duplicate, it's also even if it's chutz mi pishud yadayim, even if it's beyond wherever your reach can grasp. Okay? Why? Because once he leaves the table, once he leaves the room, and gives you enough time to. Once he gave you permission, he said, go and drink whatever you want, mix yourself drinks. So and even if it's beyond what you can reach, so then the guy walks over there and helps himself. Says Martin, no, it can't be. Just like they gave the concept of only within arm's reach by Tumataro when somebody's told me he walks into your house. So too they gave this kula, this leniency by Yain Nesef. So therefore, how do we learn this? And it's got to be like this. Elikeni. Have to train, learn it differently. Mandamar mashal shulchan also. That what you say that on the table is prohibited, right? That's only it's even though it says besochir, it should be even chutz the pishud yadayim. Even outside the what? What? Yeah, I'm saying the Rashba makes the change also. It says Masha'al Shulchan Osir is Osir even if it's outside the reach, because obviously it's within on the table is not so is pretty readily available to you, even if it's beyond the normal extension, but since it's on the table it's considered to be within his reach. Mash'ala duplicate mutter, and that which in the duplicate is mutter. Here too, I wanted to say that it should be changed to also. Let me just say if I'm right about that. Mash'ala duplicate. I know. I want what? Where are you now? The second line before the Mishnah.
Second line. I'm reading this thing. This also.
No. That's Masha duplicate.
Oh.
Okay, next one.
Okay, that's right.
Okay. Masha duplicate.
Duplicate is the sideboard of what?
The sideboard where he has the other bottles of wine, which are not really part of the meal. It's like a wet bar. Okay. So Masha duplicate. So here too, I want to read it also, because the reason why I'm doing this is because if you look back on I don't want to make you look back, but you look back on Lama and Bays, where we had the parallel sugya. That's also the it's talking about you have the same there too. It's talking about both Yisurim. So I want to say also here it's going on both the Yisurim, both the prohibited issues. And here Mashal duplicate also uvad toch lepishi yadayim. In other words, even that which is in the duplicate, we gave a special kula. It's only something he can turn around and reach. Because it's true, if you give the guy permission to take, which is what the Mishnah is talking about, and okay, you gave the guy permission to take. So if you give him permission to take, he feels free to go take what's on the sideboard, not just on the table. But then, he's only going to take the stuff which he can turn around and reach and get at the same time. He's not going to stand up, because remember, this is not a case where you said you're going to be gone for any length of time. What you said is you're going to leave him here momentarily, you take whatever you want, you're going to leave the room. So therefore, I want to read it through again, because I think I did it pretty choppy. Because let me read it through from the beginning of the Gemara again to the end of the Gemara. Haboy made wanted to say, Mash'al shulchan also that which is on the table is forbidden, but so pishu yadayim only if it's within hand's reach. Mash'al duplicate is asur, that's my change, even chutz pishu yadayim, even it's yard and arm's reach. In other words, when he gives the guy permission to go drink, and then that which is on the duplicate is also, it's even if it's beyond his reach. It can't be, says Amar. Located Rabbi Abba, didn't Rabbi Abba say, and just like they gave the concept of extension of hands by taros, that only that which is within the extension of his hands is forbidden, right, when you leave him alone in the house, so they gave that shiur by yain nesach. Ela keni. So therefore what we say is like this. So we said that even if he doesn't give you permission to go and pour what you want, only that which on the table is also, that's even chutz pishu yadayim. This the Rashba even changes chutz toch. That's even outside pishu yadayim, because anything on the table is considered fair game in terms of what the meal is considered. Mashallah duplicate, which is on the duplicate, again I'm putting on the sefer of the Mishnah. Mashallah duplicate also, that which says in the duplicate it's not permitted. That ubilvad, it's only if it's toch pishu yadayim. Because even if you use permission to mix drinks, we give you the kula pishu yadayim. Meaning the pishu yadayim is a conscious statement by Avsheshis that even though it's problematic, we're going to give you a leniency. The leniency we're giving you is that even though you told him he can go and drink, and he feels a certain free reign, nevertheless, that which on the duplicate was us is only if it's within arm's reach. Okay? Halachaches. Bolesha shnich l'sola year. If you have a party of marauders who enters a city, b'shar sholem, if they have peace, now this is not literally peace, but it means, when they're not battling. So chavios psuchas asuras, and all open barrels are also because they use that wine. Ustumas closed barrels mutaros are permitted because we assume they didn't get that wine. Shas Mechama, if they're involved in pitched battles in the city itself, Elu Mutars, they're both permitted. Both closed and open barrels. There is no time then to libate the wine. It's a famous Gemara Ksuvas which says, "L'nasech ein pnai livo liesh pnai." Right? They'll rape the women even when there's either or, either the wine or the women. They'll go after the women, even if it means forsaking the wine. Okay. So it says more. B'shas Hashmad. Yeah, their priorities messed up, obviously. They're goyim. B'shas Hashmad. At the time of Shmad, the time when there's a decree, in other words, there's a persecution. Hakol also. Everything is also the entire, all the wine doesn't matter. Now, it really doesn't have to. There's nothing to do with the. Doesn't matter, it has nothing to do with wine, it has nothing to do with our Mishnah, it's the Tosefta, Pnei Moshe brings down, it has nothing to do with anything to do with our Mishnah. It's just because the Mishnah is about B'sha'as, so therefore this talks about Shmas. This was said the story about if a king comes to the city and sets up an altar, and people bow down to the Shas or Shmat, the altar remains also forever because Mistama, a Jew, bowed down to it. Because of the Shas or Shmat. So some Jews are afraid of getting killed. Right? Shema is a time of, fatal persecution. So therefore they succumb and they worship the altars. Okay, so that's he says. Shiur el shlov the Baal Korchel. There must have been a Jew there who worshipped it, was compelled to worship even against his will. Hadamra, now this teaches us this Tosefta. Has nothing to do with our Mishnah. Avodah Zarah of the Yisrael of Avodah Zarah, which is served by a Jew, ain't up to it's never canceled, right? It can never be canceled. We had this issue previously, whether a goy can cancel the Avodah Zarah worshipped by a Jew, or nobody can ever cancel it. And for that Tosefta, it seems that Avodah Zarah worshipped by a Jew remains also forever. There is no bittul. Rabbi Yossi said, "Vachma." I mean, from this he derive also avodas elilim she'avda Yisrael al karcha. Even though a Jew worshipped against his will, because Shas Hashmad, the Jews don't really intend to be Avodah Zarah; they're being compelled to worship Avodah Zarah. Nevertheless, the altar becomes forbidden, and therefore, even though it's compelled, it's never canceled. Okay. Rabbi Yechon. Now everybody goes crazy over this Gemara. Nobody understands exactly what's going on in the Ritbas, the Pnei Moshe. They're all and the Gilin Ephraim, even they're all very difficult here. Pnei Moshe wants to make a tremendous chiddush that sometimes even open barrels are permitted, based on the next Gemara. The Ritbas wants to bring in a new element of sometimes the goy lets you know he libate your wine in order to taunt you. The Gilin Ephraim wants to bring in a new element that we're talking about, where Jews are together with the goyim in this ambush, which may be related to the immediately previously Tosefta, but it's very difficult. So therefore, I'm going to learn, like both the Mechal Mayim and Shar Teretz, that this next Gemara goes on the previous Mishnah, since they both happen to say the same thing. So therefore, it makes sense to pay attention to what they have to say. So says Rabbi Yochanan said, Leis kan asuros el mutaros. He said, you know what? It's always more. There's no such thing as the wine on the duplicate being usher. The wine on the sideboard is always mutar, right? Actually, it seems the argues on the Mishnah, Rabbi Yochanan, which is a pretty amazing thing, but that's what it seems like. He says it's mutar. So. To quote the Mechal Mayim says it's clearly only touched that which is on the table, and the Shari Yisrael says that if he would have opened another, since he gave him permission, if he would have opened another barrel, right? He said go drink what you want. So if the guy opened another barrel from the sideboard, he would have told him, thank you. You told me I could open any barrel I want. I went and opened that barrel. So therefore, he holds that even that which is on the duplicate is mutter. Rabbi Zir said, the Mishnah is right, Rabbi Yochanan, you're wrong. These remain forbidden. Why? The matabe have a moidele. Now the Mechal Mayim and Shar Yisrael have two different pshatim in this. even though they both look good in previous Mishnah, but they have a significant difference. The way I first make the Mechal Mayim. The Mechal Mayim says that if he had gotten close to the dulpike, meaning then he would thank him. Have a moidale. Moide translates here as thank him. V'lo matabei, but he thanks him. V'lo matabei. If he does come to the dulpike, lo matabei, he doesn't thank him. Showing it to because he doesn't want to give him gratitude when none is necessary. So the way that the Mechal Mayim is learning means that when are the things on the dulpike also? If when you come back to the room, the guy says, "Oh yashakeh," well, he doesn't say yashakeh. He says, "Thank you, Mr. Goldberg. The wine was very tasty." So then you have to assume that he took from the dulpike. If he doesn't say that, then you don't have to assume he took the dulpike. But since he might say that, at that point you have to actually assume that whatever's on the dulpike is also. Even if it doesn't tell you explicitly he drank from what's on the sideboard, you have to assume he did. That's how the Mechal Mayim learns it. The Shar Disho learns it like this. He says, "The Matabei, were the goy to have come close to the sideboard, right? I'm sorry, not the goy to come close to the sideboard. Were you to catch the goy in the act of going to the sideboard, right? Who moidale, then he will let you know that he drank from the sideboard. Vin lo'av matabei, if you would not have caught him in the act of going to the sideboard, lo moidale, he wouldn't tell you. Lo sholim le tipu, because he doesn't want to owe you a favor. In other words, the guy would drink so repetitiously and not tell you. So they'll be saying, no, really, it's Rabbi Yochanan held, according to Shari, so that if he drank, he'd tell you, because he gave you permission. Right, the Jew gave the goy permission, so therefore the goy would tell him if he drank. So then Rabbi Zira says not necessarily, because the goy doesn't want to thank the Jew unless he has to. So only thanks the Jew if he's caught in the act of taking from the sideboard, which may have been permitted to him, but he still doesn't want to admit it unless he has to. So therefore the bottom line is that according to Rabbi Zira, unless you know otherwise with any degree of certainty, you assume that the stuff on the dulpike is awesome. Okay? Now, getting back to our Mishnah. Rabbi Yerushalmi said, B'sholom b'leshes milchemes b'leshes. When we say times of peace and times of war, it doesn't mean times of peace, times of war in the world. It means times of peace, times of war with this particular ambush or squadron which enters the city. Right? There could be wars raging all around or peace all over the countryside. But the question whether they have time to libate or not is contingent on the conditions in the specific battleground. Okay? Says more fascinating case Havina Mipara Chivya Mipara Basrei. The way that Pnei Moshe learns that you're running after a snake to kill the snake, but it's not clear to me necessarily that's the case. Could be it means the snake is running after you. The name of the Chivya is the snake, and Mipare is when running, Basrei, behind him, right? So the question is whether it's behind the man or the man is running behind the snake. It's not 100% clear. Novel Guva, anyway, be that as it may, what happens if the snake falls into a barrel of wine in the meantime? And then he comes up. I don't know if the snake comes up dead or alive. I'm not. So the question is, Asu the Rabbanan. The case came from the rabbis actually, and they said the wine is kosher, meaning, they said, Ein Pnai Lahatil Eres. Since the snake was so absorbed in the Shas Milchama, he's like our Mishnah. Just like the armies, when they're in Shas Milchama, they don't have to be Menasech, so too the snake, when he's absorbed in this pursuit, either being the pursuer or the pursuee, he doesn't have time to secrete venom. Okay? Interesting parallel. Okay? Umanim Yisrael. That's actually the principle of spectator sports. If they're so wrapped up in the game, they don't have the opportunity to be rowdy. So that's why we like.
I was always under the impression that snakes only secrete poison when you're biting into something. This
obviously not. Yeah, obviously not. Yeah. I don't know. Obviously not. Yes.
No, we say that they absorbed the game. Look what happened. Soccer game in Israel.
No, soccer games are different for some reason. You're right. Okay. Umnim Yisrael. Umnim Yisrael. you have Jewish craftsmen, and they owed money by goy. And a goy sent them a barrel of wine as payment, a barrel of libated wine. Mutter, it's permitted for them to say to the goy, give us its money for an exchange. If, however, they already took hold of the barrel, so obviously it's become theirs, so also then it's forbidden for them to switch it for money, because that's Khalifa Yain Nes, so switching Yain Nes to some other substance, which is prohibited. Okay? Says more, Venasu Mishim Yain Nes is not also because of Yain Nesach. Now, everybody goes nuts on the question. What's the question? So the truth is, everybody's interpretation of the question leaves me feeling cold. I don't like the interpretations. Or then they really interpret, they say, wait a minute, Zachilanim Shlobafanov. When the guy sent it to you, it's already yours. Right? Which is a kletzkash in my mind, because Zachilanim Shlobafanov, what? Chavalo, yeah, he doesn't want it. So they give all sorts of crazy answers. They say, Tai bar kapor bim shalech b'bati. Makes no sense what it says here, really. So they give different interpretations. The Pnei Moshe says, the bati means he sent them by weight, not by value, so therefore he didn't really acquire it. The Gillian Ephraim changes, says Shlechai Nochrim. There's no zchia here because he sent it via goy, and a goy is not zochel adam shlovafonav. He didn't acquire it for him. The Shari Teresel changes to zochel idei matona. He gave it to him as a gift, not as wages. So therefore, it's a type of gift, which you don't want to get as a gift. But as I said, I don't like any of these interpretations, because again, we know from all over Shas, Zochilam Shlo B'Fanav, that I can bestow something upon you only works if it's meritorious to you, not if it's a detriment to you. So I have my own shot here. My own shot here, which I didn't see anybody else say, says, it's like this. The Gemara asks, look, he had Jewish craftsmen. If you send it back, you might give this to another Jew. So what happened to Lifnei Iver? If you send it back, so he's going to give it to somebody else. So that's what we're saying. Bibatim. What's bibatim? Doesn't mean in houses. It means in containers. Right? Like your tefillin has a bias, right? A glove in Hebrew is called, in classic Hebrew is called beis yad, right? So he sent it in cases which said, gallo wine or whatever, whatever non-Jewish wine. So therefore, if he sends it to another Jew, the other Jew will know because it's readily identifiable. Okay? So I don't know if my shot is true, but I think I deserve an A for creativity on that one. Okay. Says Halachiyut. Somebody who sells his wine to a goy. Pasak Shloma, that if he stipulated the price before measuring out the wine for the goy, and then he's owed the money prior to having measured out wine, which then became Yain Nesach, and that's okay. Morar Shlopasa, he measured out the wine to the goy before he set the price, then the money is forbidden, because then he's making the money over transaction on wine which is ready Yain Nesach. Okay? Notas HaMashpech, if he took a funnel, the mother told Tzuchiso Shanochi and measured into a goy's plate or container, the nutlo, and he took the same funnel, umada told Tzuchiso, so measured into a Jew's container. Im yeshpo ikfas yain, if there's some impediment which holds in the wine, also it's forbidden, because then wine, which was part and parcel of a flow which flowed into Yain Nesach, makes the whole funnel susceptible to Isser, as long as that wasn't washed out. So it's interesting too, because what happens here is that the Gemara is saying, although it's not saying outright, but it's alluding to what we've talked about previously, that nitzok is chibur linin Yain Nesach. Right? That pouring is connection. So therefore, if you're pouring through a funnel, and some wine gets stopped up inside the funnel, so then in fact, that wine which was being poured and was in the funnel at the same time coming down as wine entered into a keli and became Yain Nesach, that wine becomes Yain Nesach, and therefore, when next time you pour and something goes through that stop, I don't know, it's like a sieve or something like that, some sort of trap, and maybe traps the sediment in the funnel, so then that will make whatever goes through next time Yain Nesach until you clean out properly. Okay? So it says the Gemara, says the Mishnah, rather, Amar mikli l'kli, if you point from one kli to another kli, Hama'ara mimenu mutar, the keli from which you're pouring is permitted. As shiur l'tocho, the one into which you're pouring is forbidden. So this is talking about what it really means to say. It's a little bit cryptic. Well, what it really means to say is that, again, as we said, a flow is considered to be a connection by Nessa. So therefore, if the bottom keli is Yain Nessa, so it travels up to the upper keli, and vice versa, of course. But the Pei Moshe brings down, it's only if the flow is continuous. But if it's a drip, 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 so then that's of course not nito chibur. Okay, it's got to be continuous flow. Okay. Says the more Rabbi Bar Barakuna B'Shem Rav said, "Fahain the nugget b'zika." A guy who's pouring he's taking. Sorry, it's taking there's nothing to do with the Inessa. You're buying goatskin from your friend, and you actually pulled the goatskin. And it rips in your hand. You, the buyer, took the goatskin. As you're taking the goatskin, rips in your hand. Lo chayeba. You don't have to pay for it. Rabbi Yossi, why don't you have to pay for it? Because Moshe says, based on our Mishnah, because since you weren't posik domi. Since you didn't set a price, so therefore you don't acquire it just by picking it up. Mashiach only works after psikas dami. Now, of course, if you go into a store nowadays, so everything has a set price, so therefore there's not an issue, right? The moment you pick it up, it's considered as if you did a Mashiach on it, even though you haven't paid. I mean, I don't know if I'll pay you dinan machusa, right? Because until you pay at the cash register, they probably don't want to actually sell it to you. But l'maisa, theoretically speaking, if the price was set the moment you pick it up, so then that's considered to be the Maisa Kenya. Well, that's considered to be the transaction. So the Maisa, he says here that if the price was not said, he picked it up, and it ripped, so you're not liable to pay for it. Amr Yisrael said, of course you'd be chayav as a shomer, but obviously we're talking about a case where it wasn't a pashiyah. You're still a shomer chinam, so therefore you're not liable. Okay? Says Rabbi Yossi, Raibun, that was partial. This you need to tell us. Afilu me'al go chanusa, even if he entered into the house, into the store. In other words, I'm not sure which one, who went to whose store. What does the Pei Moshe say? Sounds like even the buyer brings the wine into his own store. Whereas he's buying for the wholesale and buys the wine and brings it into his own bar, and there breaks. Nevertheless, since they didn't actually set a price, so then the only reason he took it into his own store is that nobody else should take hold of it. So therefore, he actually still remains potter because the transaction is not complete, which is a shocking concept. Again, he might be a shomer, but he's not a buyer yet. Okay? So it says a fascinating thing. Actually, more fascinating. I don't recall this in the Bavli at all. The beginning part, the concept of Mashiach with Psika, that is in the Bavli. But he says, do we say that you're totally off the hook because no price has been set, or we say that you are liable for the minimal price that this commodity would have cost? In other words, you're going to haggle with him maybe and reduce the price. But what about the minimal threshold beyond which nobody would sell it? Are you liable at least for that? Because that is implicit, even though it wasn't explicit. Even though it wasn't explicit psika, it's implicit that that's going to be a minimum in order for the deal to be transacted. So it says the Gemara.
It sounds like there's like a wholesale and a retail price or something. That's what shiur pachos, because the way you described, there isn't any price. There isn't any dollar, unless you're talking about something set and established, like a wholesale and retail.
Well,
I was thinking like by Ezu Neshech, that you have fruit, there's fruit market standard price, and post commercial Bashuk. That's what I was thinking. Okay, it could be I'm mistaken, but that's what I was thinking. Okay, so then he went. Biazame says, the Brisa says, no, not even for that amount. No transactions taking place. The ten we looked over there. If somebody gives his wine to a guy, that if you made the transaction before the it's actually our Mishnah. You made the transaction. You set the price of the transaction before you measure out to him the wine. You can keep the money. If you measure it out before you set the price, you can't keep the money. Because if you're going to say that implicit in that transaction is the minimum price, so then even if you measure out the wine to the guy before having set the price, at the very least, the minimal price should be considered to be set ahead of time and owed by the guy to the Jew by virtue of the implicit nature of the transaction, and therefore at least that you should be allowed to collect, because that minimal price preceded implicitly the transaction, even though the explicit price followed the transaction. So it must be, if you done mutar, it must be since that price itself is not mutar. Then in fact, the case is that you get nothing. Right, you get nothing. Once you're modeh before you're posek, if you measured out before you set the price, that's it. You lost your entire business profit, even your cost. You don't get back on this deal. Okay? Says more about ma'u ikvas hayayin. It said in our Mishnah if there's like a trap in the wine. So then, trap in the wine funnel, so then the yayin gets stuck there, so next thing which is poured down, that funnel becomes also. What's the ikvas yayin? What is the language? Budum lachli. It's that which makes them moist with wine. Like it says, akuva midam, which means moist with blood. Okay? Pshita dam milsa. Now, a series of cases. This is obvious. You saw it obviously to be mashbich of a Jew's holding the funnel. Vanochli mara, and the guy is pouring into the funnel. Divrei kol aser. I mean, that's libation. You're libating by pouring the wine through the funnel. So it's ein l'chol libation godol mizeh. No greater libation, right? No. Yeah. What about if the guy is holding onto the funnel of Yisrael Mara? Turn the page. What about if the guy is holding? You know, there was a breeze before, now it's gone. It's really intolerable now. Yisrael Mara, if a guy is holding on to the funnel and to the Jew is pouring, so it's machlekes. Rabbi Yassi says still considered to be yain because the holding of the funnel in and of itself is a form of libation. Rabbi Yami Omer looks at it passively, and Matthew says it's okay, it doesn't create yain nesach. No, what if it's a large goat skin? And the goy is holding the opening of the goat skin, we saw Mar and the Jew is pouring the goat skin behind it, right? One is holding the spout and the other is pouring. Rabbi Yerusham said, same machlokas. Because in essence, the mouth of the goat skin is like the funnel, and the Jew is pouring from behind. Raimana boy, Kumi Rabbi Yossi. Raimana asked Rabbi Yossi, I guess he didn't know exactly what Machlokas to tell you about. He said, hey, the Machlokas, what Machlokas is referring to. He said, same Machlokas, Rabbi Yami, and Rabbi Yami. Because the mouth of the goat skin vis-a-vis to the goat skin is as is the funnel vis-a-vis the goat skin. The same Machlokas you have by the mouth of the funnel vis-a-vis the goat skin we have here by the mouth of the goat skin vis-a-vis the goat skin itself. Okay? If the Jew is holding on to the goat skin, the goy is pouring. Now, I'm not sure exactly how this works. The Bnei Moshe says the Jew is helping him to pour. I just don't know what the scenario is. Maybe it's like a very heavy jug or something like that. Anyway, the goy is assisting. So, Sari Meima, they wanted to say, Divra Kol Mutter, everybody holds it's Mutter, which is a shocking thing to me. I don't know why. He didn't show up tonight? Okay. Can you go check if there's, you ask if there's going to be a mini in the base matters? Huh? You ask if there's going to be a mini base matters at 10:15? What? Yes.
Nothing else.
He probably went to the graduation.
Mm-hmm. What graduation?
Let's go to Yeshiva graduation.
Of what? Who?
Aspen Yeshiva High School. Okay.
How do I get to the games?
Go to Tools. There's only one game. Brick Attack.
Which one's Tools?
Come here. This is all going on tape, you. I hope you're happy about this.
See, all the kids bike handball as a kid, they're right away. It doesn't even know.
Okay, so can we borrow your fan? Yeah,
You could.
yeah. What did you want?
Who should I ask?
Just ask anybody in the basement.
Anyone?
Yeah. Okay. Says Mar. Yisrael Tevis and Nochim. Somehow the Jew, the in this case. So initially, want to say it's mutar. I don't know why. Shmuel said, "Kol karma aser." By definition, it's tidy. This is aser. Shapamish Yisrael marpi. Sometimes the Jew loosens his grip. Then it's called iri machmas a goy nachri, and the entire port is kind of because of the goy, right? So the truth is, I don't even understand the Havamina. Maybe the Havamina they felt misayein, bo mamish, that helping out the Jew doesn't really do anything. I don't know exactly, but to me, it's kind of strange. It says Rahain the Maragel Zika, a goy who inclines the goat skin, me'elara for up and down, and he doesn't actually pour. There's no issue of pouring. So it's interesting. If a guy takes a bottle of wine, which is not mavushal, and shakes it up and down, even though it's not sealed, it seems, then according to Yerushalmi, wouldn't be a problem. I think we don't pass that way. I think we say if it's not sealed. Actually, I'm not sure. I think you don't need necessarily. I don't know what we pass about that. If you have a bottle of wine, Shambushal, and a guy handles it unsealed, what the halacha is. But if it's sealed, it's not a problem for sure. But here it sounds like even if it's unsealed, it's not a problem as well. Okay. Yain nesach aser v'aiser b'choshu. Yain nesach is forbidden in asers, no, in the smallest amount of shiur. B'yain, where it's wine and wine. In other words, if you pour a drop of yain nesach into a large amount of kosher wine, the wine is treifed up. Umayim b'mayim, if you have, there's nisu chamayim too. If a goy libated water to Avodah Zarah, and a drop of that water went into a large amount of water, kosher. Now, of course, if you dropped it into the ocean, the whole ocean doesn't become musser. Obviously, there are gradations.
Are there no people?
Yeah. Not people? Okay.
You need this.
Yeah. If it actually works. Sorry, guys, won't reach you. Okay. Actually, I shouldn't put it next to the mic. Okay. So he says that if water by water koshu, also it's koshu. Now yain b'mayim, if forbidden wine gets mixed up with water, or mayim b'yain, water in wine, but nice time they need a taste. In other words, it has to be 160. Yes, it has to be that this gives a taste. And I don't know how water's ever going to give taste in wine now. It's going to be, I don't know. I think it's just, it's not being taken seriously. That wine just got in there by accident, so to speak. Anyway, the Zaklas, when you have libated substance mixed into to a similar substance, a permitted substance, no matter how small the amount that forbids it, shalom amino, if it's in a different type, no sitam, then the shiur is no sitam. The shiur is whatever gives a taste. Chizkiya said, Chodat Omar. Now, there are a lot of interpretations in this next lines of the Gemara, and I saw right before Shir, the Sameach and Perek Gimel Machos Asur Salach Tesvav has his own shot, which I really didn't see as being so good, so direct, whatever. So I'm just telling you, the shot I'm going to tell you is basically the Mechal Mayin Pshat. Chizkiya, I hate that a lot of people change gears to Mechal Maim doesn't. That mar b'mokom shalain nikarim b'mida. When is water considered to be a substance which can forbid wine? Right? When is it considered to forbid wine? When water is sold in that locale by weight. You can buy bottled water, because then water has chashivus in and of itself. However, if water is not sold in that place, doesn't have significance in that respect, it's no different than wine and wine, meaning that by most wines, you dilute them in water, right? And the water becomes part and parcel of the wine. So therefore, there's no concept of water being aser, being aser in wine and giving a taste of wine, unless the water has significance in and of itself. But if the water has no significance in and of itself, so therefore it's not considered to be a separate and distinct substance when it gets mixed into the wine, then it's yain b'yain. Which in fact, I phrased it wrong. It's not a kula, it's a chumrah. It's a chumrah, because it's like min b'mino, right? I phrased it wrong. I said it with the principle correctly, but the net result is a chumrah, not a kula. If water is sold in that locale as a separate substance, then it's min b'sheino mino, that's a kula, right? Because it's two different types. But if the water is not sold, so it becomes part and parcel of wine, then it's min b'mino, even though one is water and one is wine, therefore it's more of a chumrah, it's also. Okay? Okay. Says more further. Chizkiah said, kosher Moscow be'isser ve'eter. You have a cup which initially put into it wine of isser and wine of heter. And neither of them by themselves, and then you dilute with water. Because their custom in the old days, of course, is to dilute wine with water 1 to 3, 1 to 4 cups. So neither of these wines in themselves will give a taste to the water. In other words, were the usher wine by itself or the mutter wine by itself, then it wouldn't be considered to be wine. And the halacha is the bare minimum shiur for wine, according to Sfardim, is I think actually 1 to 1. In other words, it has to be at least 50% wine. Don't be say Bar Piagofen. For Ashkenazim, it has to be only 1/6 wine. I think even the Sfardim agree that vis-a-vis Surim, as long as it's 1/6 wine, it's still considered to be wine and is forbidden, even though they wouldn't use it for Kiddush. I think so. So be that as it may, here you only have, it only would be 1/6 wine if you took into account both the kosher wine and the treif wine. Needed both. So Rabbanan hold in that case in Orla is Zev Zegorim is mutter, right? They're both, it's permitted. But Rabbi Lezer holds you go after whatever substance came last. If the mutter substance came last, so then that determines the nature of the wine, and the mixture is mutter. If the other substance of wine became last, so that determines the mixture of the nature of the mixture, and the wine is also. Okay? So that's what it's going to discuss. Kosher mitzvah mitzvah, it's got kosher and treif wine together mixed in water. The nafal iser should be basoif. If the prohibited wine came at the end, also then it's for prohibited. The heter basoif. If the heter came in at the end, then it's mutter. And that's according to Rabbi Lezer. The Rabbi Shmuel, that's Gemara, it's the Kadet. Maybe it's Rabbi Shmuel, the Rabbi Shmuel, the Rabbi Shmuel, the Rabbi Lezer, maybe it's Rabbi Lezer. So Nesach, it's a severity by Yain Nesach. By Yain nor even Rabbanan would agree. Rabbanan normally we don't follow the last substance. When you have mutter, not the substance contributing, so then the mutter substance does not join with the other substance. By Yain Nesach they will would because the severity of Yain Nesach. Okay? Rabbi Yossi asked, Im choimru b'yayin nesach. If it's a severity by yayin nesach, I feel nafal heter basof. Even if the permitted substance fell at the end, he also. In other words, once there's any yayin nesach, then we should forbid it. Okay? Well, if you're going to go that far. And Gemara doesn't answer that question. Right? Obviously, Gemara felt that even in yayin nesach, there are gradations. Rabbi Yatzish Rabbi Yochanan said, Kosher Mosko mi Yisr v'heter. If you have a different shot and with a different approach than the one we've seen till now. If you have a cup which has usher wine and mutter wine and water, you look at the mutter wine as if it's not there, because the usher wine in the mutter wine would be min b'mino and it'd be usher, right? And therefore, if you took both of the wines into account, you'd have to be mavatal or larger shiur, right? So the way he says is that we look at the mutter wine as if it's not there. For Isser, we all look at the usher wine in and of itself. If it couldn't impart a taste by itself, usher, it's forbidden. If you love, and if not mutter, it's permitted. Rabbi Yosha said, Vusha nafal heter basov. The caveat is here that it's only only if the heter fell at the end. In other words, he's saying we don't obviously because the chumrah of yain nesach. Even if you'll normally zeves agorim is mutter in this case like that we look at the heter substance if it's not there, and only the osir substance has to interact with the other type of substance. Nevertheless, by yain nesach we need the heter falling at the end. Rabbi Yavishem, Rabbi Yochanan says no. Lo shani bet shnofel is b'tchil v'heter b'sof, heter b'tchil v'sof. It makes no difference the sequence. Afilu mayim, it should be v'yayin with a vav. Even they fell simultaneously. That makes no difference. Afilu nimza kol tzarko, even if it's completely mixed up, meheter, you might say that, in other words, if it's completely mixed up and now it looks like a full cup of wine, right? Because you have a proper shiur of mizug, of wine and water together, and that's how they used to drink. Nevertheless, at royas et k'misha you look at the permitted substance if it's not there for Isser, and you look at the Isser substance vis-a-vis the water, which is a very big kula. Im yesh bo b'nositam, it could give a taste to the permitted substance to the water. It's also it's forbidden. V'im lav, and if it could by itself cannot do it mutter, it's okay. Rabbi Zera said, Hadar that. Now here's a little bit of a typo. According to Gemara, the way the Sugi reads in oral, it should be Hadar dat amarta. Hadar dat amarta. That what you said, and that's what you should say. That what you said is bikula, not vikula, but bikula tinyanin, is under all conditions, meaning that what Rabbi Yochanan said applies to all conditions. What does it mean, all conditions? So the more explains. What do you mean to say? Rabbi Yezer Yochanan said they said slochis yain nesach. If you have a bowl or a cup, whatever, of forbidden wine, shenofel chavis, which fell into a barrel, which should be shel yayin, fell into a barrel of permitted wine. And then that mixture fell into a well of water. The same thing we said this whole time. The same thing we said, you see the permitted substance of it's not there, and we look at the prohibited substance of itself. If it has enough to give a taste to the well, it's osir, and if not, it's mutter. Okay? Now, all of that is with yain nesach, but this is a sugi mesechta orla. So now get schlepped in at the top of Lam Bavanav, the rest of sugi orla, even though it's not at all relevant to our mesechta and our discussion. And their discussion is talking about when you have making a bread and using a starter sourdough. And using sourdough, both some of chulin and some of truma. Okay? And that's the classic case of zev zagorim, really, even more than wine, because it's causing fermentation, right? So that's the idea of zev zagorim, both causing. Akadu shenoflu zechar. So the machlokas Rabbi Elazar and Chachamim, whether zev zagorim or mutter, when the two catalysts we say it's mutter, or do we say go after the last one is b'shenoflu zechar if they fell in sequence. What they both fell simultaneously. It says in Orla, Blazer says we follow always the last substance, the carb, so therefore if the sour of chulin came last, that's the sourdough which completed the starter, so then it's chulin. If the sourdough of truma came last, that's the sourdough which completed the truma, so that's what's considered to be truma. What they fell simultaneously. The Shmini Me'adah says more, very cool proof. So again, from the Zohar, from the Om Seftorah. The chometz of kutim, they're suspect of chometz achar Pesach. They're only chometz on Pesach, but they're suspect to keep their chometz after Pesach. So they keep their sourdough starter from before Pesach to after Pesach. This is going back again to the subject that kutim are Jews. So they have Isser chometz on Pesach, right? So then, from when can you start buying for them chometz achar Pesach? Shabal batim, if you're buying from a Baal Boss, it's Sholosh Shabbos, it's only after 3 weeks, Shalafir, after 3 weeks of baking, we assume a sourdough starter from before the holiday is gone, he was using fresh starters, so therefore it's not Chomesh Sharaf Pesach anymore. What about bakers? So it should be here, so we should transpose the word for the next line with this word. Bikfarim, if it's in villages, Achar Shlosh Yomim, after 3 days, so the baker's considered to have used all his old starter. Bikruach, if it's in a metropolis, a major city, Achar Shlosh Yomim, even after 3 ovenfuls, because his ovenfuls are much larger, he has a much larger clientele. Okay? Hashem Omer, even though he said by a bus it's 3 weeks of baking, which is a long time. If it should be im hayah, that's what it says in Orla. Adam Gov is a great man who entertains a lot. Oh, shoya mesi libno, or he's marrying off his son. V'afa shlosha tanurim b'Shabbos, and he baked 3 ovenfuls during 1 week. Zu one after another, mutter, it's okay. And the same thing when they said by a baker after 3 days in the villages. So it's already considered to be fresh starter. If he did all 3 ovenfuls in 1 day, like as if he was in a big city, mutter, that also eradicates all the prior starter. Shimon says, even when they said bakers, it should be bekrachim in the large cities after 3 ovenfuls, which could theoretically be in 1 day. Asar shlosh yomim. It's still asar until for the first 3 days. Why is that? From the morning he chooses the starter for that entire day. So he doesn't use all the starter 1 day anyway, because he takes the starter from dough number 1, and puts part of the starter in dough number 1, then uses part of dough number 1, puts in dough number 2, then uses parts of dough number 2, puts in dough number 3, and so on and so forth. So it doesn't actually use up all the starter in 1 day, even if he makes a lot of batches. It takes him 3 days to finish the starter no matter what. Says Mo, aha! Says the Gemara, also Isa Shniya, that second dough, which you make in the day. Since you're taking starter, you have starter from the morning, from the previous day. You also have starter from today, because you put into the second dough stuff from the first dough as well. That second dough is ever clear. Has both elements there, both from the pre-Chomet Pesach sourdough and the sourdough from this morning's batch. Yet nevertheless, it says here it's also. Well, here you introduce both starters simultaneously. So from here we see the Rabbi Lezer must hold, we'll assume he's going to look at Rabbi Lezer, well it's Achar Achrani, by follows the last substance, that when it's simultaneous, it's like the other substance was last as well. Okay? That's what I want to prove from here. That's what it says. Rabbi Yirmiyah, Rabbi Yirmiyah says to Rabbi Lezer, Man Tana Chametz Shekutim, who's the author of this brisa, which shows about the sourdough of the kutim, Rabbi Lezer, and he says obviously that when they come together simultaneously, prohibited and permitted substance, they also answer. Okay? Maybe it's Rabbi Chanina Antunaya. Rabbi Yosef said to Rabbi Chanina Antunaya, Nehira is to remember the Avisa and Amori, that which used to say you used to say At you Rabbi Yirmiyah Shem Lakish, you Rabbi Yirmiyah name Lakish. Who's the author of this price, Chomet Shalchutim, Rabbi Lezer? Do you remember that you said that? But Kam Lavin Morim. The other didn't say the same thing. They said that Rabbi Hila b'Shem Reish Lakish, that Rabbi Hila is the one who said over the name Reish Lakish. Yodu, even Rabbanan agreed. Yodu means even the rabbis came down. L'chamitza shakuti Rabbi Lezer. It was, even though it sounds like Rabbi Eliezer Shita, the Aser Zev is a Gorim, it's not the case. In fact, even the rabbis asked it because they stuck it to the Samaritans. Same principle we had last night. But particularly on the Samaritans, we asked their sourdough to loaves, even if the starter was mixed in with starter from after Pesach. Okay? Says more even according to Rabbanim. Vod mi ador, and furthermore we don't learn this out from here. The Ma Rabbi Chanina bar Rabbi Avo. His son Rabbi Avo said, Abba Havali Uvda, my father had such a case of chametz of Samaritans. Shal Rabbi Chia, it said in the message Rabbi Chia, should be Rav Ami, or Rabbi Ami, Rabbi Asi, I don't know why the names are contracted here, Rav Mi and Rav Si. V'horulon Lake Rabbi Lezer. And they passed Rabbi Lezer to aser the sourdough of the kutim, the chametz of the kutim after Pesach. Says the more Mao ki yechida. How can they pass Rabbi Lezer? Lezer shitas yachid ki yechida. More in the passing like the shita of one solitary individual. Rabbi Lezer, lo, obviously not. Rather mishum shiur the chametz shel kutim Rabbi Lezer, because they pass in the case of the sourdough of the kutites, they pass Rabbi Lezer l'chumra again to stick it to the kutim. Okay. Alright, Ramuna said, Rabbi Yossi, Rabbi Yossi, Kamoda, Tomer, Tamar, look, Rabbi Lezer, just like you said over there, by the chametz of Kutim, the Los Rabbi Lezer, of Hachalach, Rabbi Lezer, do you always say Los Rabbi Lezer, even by other things, considering Zev is a Goreim? Says more, no. Normally, it said, Ulachol, it should be Davar. To everything, Pat Rabbi Lezer, of course not. Lezer Shitas Yachid. It's a Shita of a solitary individual. It's from Beis Shammai. Normally, no Paskin like it. Only by chometz of kutim, they wanted to be severe, and they they agreed with Rabbi Lezer that no matter what the sequence is in that case, zev is agorim is also, and therefore, I mean, either whether the source of kutim was last, the chometz travel or pesach of the kutim was last, or simultaneous with other sourdough. In both cases, it is forbidden because they're kutim. Let's just get to the base. By the way, I got a call today from Hamodia in Eretz Yisrael.
Really?
It's the Gera newspaper. They said the main siyum is next week. There is no main siyum. There is no main siyum in Eretz Yisrael because of the matzav there, although I don't know what that has to do with not making siyum because of the situation. And there's no siyum in America and there's no excuse for it. That's what he said.
I told you?
Yeah. But he said that my article in Yerushalmi from years ago was the best article ever published on the topic. So therefore, they're making a special issue next week, even though there's no major siyum, and they want to put in my article. So I said, fine. And they should put in that we're making a siyum in a couple of weeks, and that tapes are available of the entire Yerushalmi, and they were pretty impressed by that. Okay, says more. Yeah, Elu asurin osin kosher. These are also, and they're forbidden no matter how small the shear. It's the second that's going to be published. It was republished by the Jewish Tribune. After this in the Jewish Tribune, which is the British Aguda newspaper, published it. Now Hamodia is publishing it. So the article has gotten a lot of press.
Who's the first president?
The Jewish Observer.
Yeah.
Elo is called the other Daf Yomi. Elo Asur Vos and Koshering. These are also, and they also no matter how small the shear is. Yain Nesach, Avodah Zarah, obviously it's something which is used for Avodah Zarah purposes, a ring or something, no matter how small. Or it's Levuvin, hides which are pierced opposite the heart, surefire side, it was used for Avodah Zarah. Shor Niskal, an ox which is meant to be stoned because it killed an individual, even a small particle of that oster's, other meat that falls into it. Egla Rufa, the calf, whose neck is wrong, if somebody was murdered there. Tzipor Mitzora, the birds of a Mitzora, any part of them, they part of them they forbid. The birds he brings part of the tone process. Seir Nazir, the hair of a Nazir, gets mixed into a garment. Your cashmere gets mixed with the hair of a Nazir, it's bad. Petach Hamor, firstborn donkeys. Basar B'chola, milk and meat mixed together. Chulin Shishtu Bazar, chulin which was shechted in the Beis HaMikdash. Harelu Asurin, they're forbidden. The Surin V'osim Kosher, and they also no matter how small the shear. Yain Nesef Avodah Zarah V'Aris Levuvin. How we know that all these things are also no matter how small the shear. Hashem V'lo Yidpak B'Yodcha Mu'in Acherem. Nothing from the forbidden substance should cling to you, even the smallest mashu. The Shor Nisko, the stoned ox. The Masha Shnemar Shor Hasisokla Shor, since it says that the ox should be stoned. Any additional echel that obviously should not be eaten. Matam lo echel. Why is it should not be eaten? Obviously, it's treif, stones. can't eat it if it's stone, right? So why say lo yachel mikach osar banoya? From this we learn that it's forbidden also to derive benefit from it. I'll come back to the other substances, and the Mir Tzur Shem make the Avodah Zarah Monday night.